The shocking truth about the book of Numbers, revealed in a devastating new way at midnight. The clock struck midnight, and with it, the air crackled with an unspeakable tension. A secret, buried deep within the book of Numbers, was about to unfold, a truth so earth-shattering it seemed as if the universe held its breath. Shadows danced behind every corner, whispers echoed through the darkness, and the hairs on the back of your neck stood on end. The blood-stained pages of history threatened to spill their gruesome tales, tales of power, betrayal, and shocking revelations that could rattle the very foundations of belief. It all started on an unassuming Wednesday, the kind where the mundane mixed with the bizarre. Strange symbols flickered in the darkness, a cryptic language hidden for eons, just waiting for one brave soul to decode its deadly secrets. People in the sleepy town of Maplewood murmured superstition's cursed numbers, a vengeful spirit connecting the dots on the old pages. They said each number beat like a heart, alive and yearning to tell its story. A mist rolled in thick, swirling like ghosts' whispers beneath the dim streetlights, feeding the feeling that something monumental was about to happen. As the townsfolk huddled in their homes, a flicker of movement caught their eyes, a figure cloaked in shadows, darting between the alleys, brandishing an ancient artifact that glimmered ominously in the moonlight. The whispers grew louder, filled with dread and astonishment. Could this really be the key to unlocking the book of Numbers? What fate awaited anyone who dared explore its depths? The tension escalated, hearts raced, pulses quickened. The distant sound of sirens howled, but there was no emergency, just chaos unleashed by curiosity. What will happen if we read it? Gasped a voice, raw with fear, as eyes darted like startled deer, each breath heavy with the weight of 1,000 questions. There was no denying it, something was way off, and yet the pull of the unknown was intoxicating. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Suddenly, as if the universe was listening, the sky shattered with a veil of lightning, illuminating the darkened streets and sending tremors through the hearts of those watching. The figure paused, turning toward the glow with eyes full of secrets yet untold. What dark forces were at work? The question hung in the air, weighing heavy as the townsfolk exchanged glances of horrified fascination. It was clear this was just the beginning, a warped prologue to a much darker tale. As the shadows deepened, they knew it was only a matter of time before the truth came to light, but what would that truth cost them? The figure stepped into the light cast by the vicious lightning, revealing an aged face twisted in a mix of rage and sorrow. The townsfolk drew back, fear knotting their stomachs as they recognized old Elias, the town outcast. He had been seen muttering to himself for years, wandering the back alleys and collecting strange trinkets as if they held an importance they could only imagine. Now, he stood before them, clutching the bronze artifact as if it was a lifeline. "Stop!" he shouted, his voice cracking through the charged air. "You've played with fire. You were never meant to dig up the past." His words hung heavy, swirling with an urgency that made some shiver. Around him, the energy shifted, vibrating with palpable tension. The whispers in the crowd intensified, merging into a collective gasp. What does he know? Has he unlocked its power? Elias raised the artifact, its surface glimmering like a dark star. "The numbers," he continued, his voice rising. "They hold truths buried deep. Powers that demand a price. Tremors of history that could crack this town apart." A chill of dread wrapped around Maplewood like a sinister mist. Who among them could handle such knowledge? The questions burned bright, igniting fears of what the book could unleash. "Elias, what do you mean?" someone shouted, desperation lacing the words. "If this is true, what do we do?" He marched closer, eyes blazing beneath wild, unruly hair. You're too late to turn back. The moment you sought out the book of Numbers, you invited the darkness. Do you feel it? It's hungry. Then, he paused, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his feature. The previously confident stance wavered, as if wrestling with a doubt. But there's still hope. A low rumble echoed through the streets, as if to mock him. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and people stumbled back, wide-eyed and gasping, their fears turning to panic. Hope? What hope? A woman cried, clutching her child close, as others began to step back, unsure of what they might summon. Elias took a deep breath, the ancient artifact shaking in his grip. Each number is a part of something larger. A key, and a curse. It's alive. If it's loosed upon the world without the proper knowledge. His voice faltered, but he pressed on through fear and uncertainty. It could bring ruin like you've never imagined. The townsfolk barely heard him over the chant that began to swirl in the air. A haunting melody, a collective whisper echoing the numbers in the ancient language Elias had once feared. Hearts raced. Bodies turned as they looked for the source of the chanting. Shadows pooled at the corners, shifting restlessly, as if they too were joining the eerie song. The crack of another lightning bolt split the sky, illuminating figures in the distance, dark silhouettes circling. Symbols woven together in a dance of light and shadow. Were they watching? What did they want? Panic surged through the crowd, and chaos threatened to swallow them whole. Get inside. Now! Someone screamed, but Elias stood his ground, staring at the tempest closing in around them. You want to know the truth? Then you must face the consequences. All of you. His voice bellowed like thunder, but the words evaporated against the winds of growing uncertainty. At that moment, he turned, casting the artifact high as if calling upon darker forces to aid or destroy. Then he dropped to his knees, the ground vibrating as numbers erupted from the sky, raining down upon Maplewood, their meanings echoing in unsettling harmony. Each pulse struck like a heartbeat, and with every new tremor, the town braced for what was to come. What secrets were unleashed? What evil stirred in the depths? As the last whisper of the numbers faded into the night, a terrible silence fell upon Maplewood, thick and suffocating. Too late to turn back, they could only wait for the truth to reveal itself, a truth that might not just annihilate their past, but shatter their future completely. But what if that was just the beginning of something far worse? The air crackled, electric and chilling, as the last echoes of the numbers faded. Maplewood, cloaked in an uneasy silence, felt like a balloon full of air, ready to burst. The townsfolk stood frozen, wide-eyed and taut, every breath drawing in the tension that thrummed through the night. Elias remained on his knees, lost in a trance, staring into the distance. His eyes seemed to see visions that eluded everyone else. With shaking hands, he clutched the artifact tighter, as if it were a lifeline, or perhaps a noose. The shadows thickened around him, swirling and whispering secrets only he could grasp. At a loud crash somewhere in the distance shattered the pall. People jumped back, fear coiling in their guts. Was it just the wind? Or had some dark secret been released right then and there? Murmurs erupted. What's happening? Is it the numbers? Just then, a piercing scream sliced through the heavy air. It came from the old church on the hill, a place that had stood silent for years. Many of the townsfolk turned towards it, eyes wide with dread. The church door swung open, revealing a figure silhouetted against the flickering candlelight inside. It was Clara, the kind-hearted librarian, her expression painted with terror. They're coming. Someone help. They're coming. Her words ignited a fire of panic. Who's coming? Someone shouted, but Clara only shook her head, her hands clawing at her hair as if trying to keep her sanity intact. The shadows dancing around her twisted into grotesque forms, reaching out like ice-cold hands. Elias finally broke free from his trance, snapping his head towards the church. Clara! He yelled, pushing himself to his feet. In that moment, the crowd parted, fear overtaking any sense of community. Would he go to her? Or would he stay? But Clara began to stagger backward, her eyes wide like saucers. They want the book. They want the artifact. With that, a monstrous roar erupted, echoing off the buildings of Maplewood. The ground shook again, harder this time. An unnatural wind tore through the streets, extinguishing the streetlights, plunging the town into darkness. People screamed, stumbling away from the waves of terror that crashed over them. What do we do? Facing the night, Elias felt the weight of their fear. Moments earlier he was a messenger, but now, the burden of their faith weighed heavily upon him. Everyone! To the church! He shouted, voice resolute against the howling wind. We can't fight this alone. The crowd hesitated, rooted in place, glancing back at the gathering storm of shadows creeping closer. But fear of the unknown drove them onward. They surged toward the church, desperate to find safety, to understand what had begun to emerge from the chaos. Inside, the flickering candlelight created a dance of silhouettes, revealing Clara trembling, wide-eyed, and pale. They're coming for what you disturbed, she whispered, voice trembling. They're hungry for the numbers. As Elias entered, panting, the artifact pulsed in his grip, resonating with the dark energy surrounding them. It began to hum, vibrating against his skin, as if aware of the danger. Clara ran to him, desperation marking her face. You need to put it away. It's drawing them closer. Then came the knock. It was soft at first, a tapping almost, but quickly escalated into a thundering crash against the church doors. The timbers rattled, and with each impact, the shadowy figures outside grew larger, more defined, until the outline of a hand long and clawed could be seen through the crack. Elias! Clara screamed, her voice trembling with pure terror. You have to do something. They won't stop. Heart racing, Elias felt the pulse of the artifact in sync with the knocks, like a heartbeat in time with the horror. This was not just a curse but an awakening, and they were all part of it. Would they be able to survive the night? Or would the book and its dark legacy consume them all? A dreadful realization washed over him. The darkness had been unleashed, but so had an even greater power. And as the knocking intensified, Elias knew the time had come to confront not only what they had uncovered but the very essence of their existence in Maplewood. But what awaited them once they opened that door? What unseen forces lay behind, eager to spill into their world? The knock transformed into a frenetic barrage, a violent echo that sent splinters flying from the centuries-old doors. Elias cringed as the sound pulsed through his chest. Each thud felt like a death knell. Shadows writhed just beyond the threshold, inching closer, eager to claw their way inside. Clara, we have to secure the doors. He shouted above the din, adrenaline surging through his veins. They rushed to the heavy doors together, but as they pushed against the wood, it felt like trying to hold back an oncoming tide. The neighbors in the church, their faces haggard with fear, joined their frantic efforts. We must hold them back, shouted Mr. Jenkins, the town's blacksmith, as he braced his shoulder against the door. They want that artifact. Elias risked a glance at the artifact in his hand, its glow illuminating his face. It pulsed with urgency, almost alive. What have I done? He whispered, the weight of his actions crashing down on him. He felt an overwhelming urge to toss it away, to rid himself of its burden. But Clara tightened her grip on his arm, drawing him back to the present. No, Elias. You can't, she gasped, eyes darting to the door. The knocks were relentless now, a heartbeat of madness threatening to breach the sanctuary. Suddenly, a deafening crack echoed as one of the doors splintered. The townsfolk gasped, stepping backward, terror blanketing the room. Through the growing fissure, a sliver of darkness poured in, a swirling mist that seemed to breathe and hunger. Search the pews. Find something, anything to use. Clara commanded, her voice laced with determination amidst the chaos. The chilling atmosphere edged Elias closer to panic, yet he tore his gaze from the darkness that beckoned and scrambled to the nearest pew. A splintered piece of wood, a heavy candlestick, seemed to call to him. "Got it!" he shouted, brandishing his makeshift weapon. Clara nodded, drawing strength from his action, and helped others gather what they could: a rusted lamp, a couple of heavy books, an iron pot. It was hardly a fortress against the unknown, but desperation fueled their resolve. The howl of the wind outside shifted, morphing into a sinister laughter, mocking their feeble attempts at barricading the door. The shadows slipped closer, grotesque faces manifesting within the inky tendrils. A low voice, deep and echoing, slithered into the church. "Let us in, your reckoning has arrived." Elias felt chills race down his spine, the darkness tinged with an awful familiarity. From where did this malevolence stem? Had it been waiting for the right moment, slumbering beneath Maplewood's surface, only to awaken now? The answers danced tauntingly just out of reach. Before he could contemplate further, a breathless whisper cut through the air behind him. The numbers. Clara's voice trembled as she turned wide-eyed to the artifact. "Maybe it's the key. You must use it." He could hardly breathe, weighing the artifact's allure against the gnashing threat now bursting against the doors. Was it worth risking everything? To hold such power and knowledge? As the shadows writhed, answering his question with a new wave of knocking, Elias felt the artifact resonate louder, stirring the desires buried deep within him. It was calling, beckoning him to unlock its secrets, but at what cost? Suddenly, the doors shattered, collapsing inward with a surge of fractured wood. The dark figures surged forth, erupting into the church like an avalanche, their chilling shapes poisoning the warmth of the flickering candles. Clara screamed, her voice swallowed by the shadows. Without thinking, Elias raised the artifact high. The moment felt suspended, as though Maplewood itself had drawn a collective breath. But would the truth save them or doom them all? Outside, the storm pulsed brightly, and beneath it, a new sound emerged, echoing numbers rising into a chilling chant. Elias felt the weight of the artifact in his hand, its power fluctuating in sync with the chaos around him. The chanting echoed, increasing in volume, turning into a haunting symphony of dread. The shadows surged forward, mouths agape, revealing rows of glinting teeth ready to feast on their fear. "Now, Elias. Do it!" Clara shouted, eyes wide with desperation, bringing him back to the moment. The townsfolk huddled behind makeshift barriers, ready for whatever was to come. He felt a fire inside him build, fueled by both dread and determination. Holding the artifact high, he focused on the swirling mists at the threshold, channeling his fear and fury. The numbers, a forgotten language within the artifact, unfolded in his mind. They unraveled with each heartbeat, forming a pattern both maddening and enlightening. "Open!" he shouted, his voice cracking as he mustered all the strength within him. "Show us the truth." As he spoke, the artifact glowed brighter, and the shadows recoiled. Like a curtain drawing back, the darkness parted, revealing glimpses of a twisted reality beyond their world. Faces flashed in and out, people Elias recognized mixed with the monstrous figures, their cries interlaced in an unholy harmony. Clara stumbled closer, eyes gleaming with awe and terror. What are they?" "Lost souls," Elias breathed, recognizing them from years of nightmares, the villagers who had vanished over the decades. Each figure flickered as if trapped in a limbo, caught between the church's sanctity and the abyss that yearned for them. They were the price of the artifact's power, a debt yet to be repaid. Suddenly, a powerful force surged through the church, slamming into Elias with a depth that knocked the breath from his chest. He staggered back, almost dropping the artifact, but Clara was there, catching him. "You have to focus, Elias. Use it. It's the only way." With shaky hands, he tightened his grip on the artifact. The chanting numbers danced in his mind. If he could only remember them all, then maybe he could push back this nightmare. 1, 2, 3, he whispered, the numbers tangible against his thoughts. The shadows gathered, their laughter rising, taunting him as they reached closer. Mr. Jenkins swung a heavy pew at the encroaching darkness, but it hardly fazed the entities, who shrieked with delight. They thrived on fear, feeding off the desperation hanging thick in the air. Elias. Clara's voice cut through the chaos. We're running out of time. He closed his eyes, drawing inspiration. Numbers are keys to realms forgotten and voices of the lost, he muttered, recalling what he had once read in old tomes, gathering the echoes of wisdom. Then, a brilliant idea struck him. What if it's not just the numbers? In that instant, he opened his eyes to meet Clara's gaze, filled with hope and terror alike. The truth is about understanding the past. Channeling his essence into the artifact, he shouted another number, 4. The walls vibrated as if resonating with his declaration. The shadows reeled, their expression morphing from glee to grotesque despair. The faces of the lost flickered brighter within the artifact's glow. It bound them, revealing their stories of grief, betrayal, and the darkness that had imprisoned them. Clara squeezed his arm. You're doing it, Elias. Keep going. But with each number he called out, Elias felt the toll it took on him. Was he meant to bear this burden alone? Could the truth truly save them all, or was it an unraveling thread that might lead to their doom? 5. He cried, desperation creeping into his heart. As the numbers ascended toward a chilling crescendo, another powerful force knocked the breath out of him. Something was rising, something darker than the shadows, something they had awoken. Elias. Clara's scream echoed through the church, blending with the shadows, blending with the storm. Before he could speak, a figure emerged from the surging darkness, towering and terrifying. In that moment, Elias realized this was just the beginning. What have you done? It hissed, its voice like thunder. What had he truly unleashed? And was there any hope left as the storm raged outside? The figure stepped forward, closely resembling a specter that had slipped through the cracks of reality. Its silhouette loomed, casting long shadows across the crumbling church walls, as the air grew thick with a scent of decay. Elias felt his heart race, pounding like a war drum against his ribs. Each beat seemed to echo his fear. Reveal the truth, and face the consequences, the creature warned, curling its grotesque lips into a chilling smile. Its eyes, dark voids, searched Elias as if probing his very soul. Elias struggled to steady his breathing. We're not afraid of you, he shouted, his voice betraying a tremor. Clara gripped his arm tighter, her skin cold against his, a reminder of the stakes at hand. Behind them, the townsfolk gasped, their fear palpable. Mr. Jenkins clutched his broken pew like a shield, though the courage in his stance faltered. You think you can control the powers of the artifact? He called out, attempting to sound braver than he felt. It's beyond any of us. Is it? The figure crooned, tilting its head mockingly. The power of the lost is a double-edged sword. Each word oozed with malice, weaving into the atmosphere and wrapping around their throats. Elias didn't have the luxury of time to reflect on the implications. The haunting faces of the lost flickered more furiously within the artifact's glow, now solidifying into wisps of light that danced like flames. Their cries wove into the air, forming a desperate chorus, as if urging him to choose wisely. Come with me, Elias said suddenly, voice gaining strength, though his insides quaked. Help us break this cycle. You were once people, like us. A flicker of hesitation passed through the creature's demonic features. Help you? Or trap you further? Neither, Clara interjected fiercely, stepping forward. This is about redemption. You know what you lost, let us help you find peace. The being recoiled, snarling lowly, exposing rows of jagged teeth like shark fins in a dark ocean. Peace? The truth is a prison you cannot fathom. You summon the shadows, and they will devour you. With a surge of determination, Elias embraced the artifact, envisioning the lost soul's stories. I won't let you consume anyone. I will summon the truth. 6. He roared, the word reverberating with fierce energy. The artifact flared brightly, casting brilliant light into the corners of the church, illuminating the cracking stone and shivering townsfolk. The shadows cried out, hissing in protest. Clara whimpered, but her eyes glimmered with urgency. "Keep going, Elias. We're almost there." Her encouragement sliced through his doubt, reminding him why he fought. 7. The vibrant light pulsed outward, pushing back the darkness, twisting its arms in desperation. The lost souls surged, drawing closer, their faces morphing into vivid emotions of hope and despair. The figure howled, a sound that rattled the very bones of the church. "You cannot break free. You don't know the weight of the truth you seek." Elias locked eyes with the apparition, and for a fleeting second, he saw a flicker of humanity within the abyss. "Maybe we don't understand it yet, but we will." 8. He cried, adrenaline surging as the shadows writhed and shrieked, growing more frantic by the second. The light grew blinding, illuminating the fear on every face present. It was a sacred moment of honesty, a leap into the unknown. But deep down, Elias wondered if he was sealing their fates or liberating them with each number he called. Could the truth save them, or would it destroy everything? Suddenly, a roar erupted from the figure, and the church trembled beneath their feet. The ground cracked like thunder. "You open the gate of horrors, now face the wrath of those you have disturbed." Elias's heart sank as the air thickened with malice. He felt a cold horror creeping back, gnawing at his resolve. As a torrent of shadows surged toward him, he had one final question burning in his mind. What would the truth reveal before it all came crashing down? And as they braced for impact, one thought loomed over everything: could anyone emerge unscathed from the truth lurking just behind the veil? The shadows churned and twisted through the air, flailing like angry vipers. Elias felt the heat of their rage wash over him, seeping into his very bones. His voice faltered for a split second, but Clara squeezed his arm again. This was no time for doubt. He had to be strong. 9. The word burst from his lips, raw and desperate, ignited by the searing light of the artifact. It flared like the sun, pushing back the darkness inch by inch. The creature recoiled, its form warping under the radiance, snarling as the shadows retreated. "You think the truth will save you?" it screeched. The walls shook with the thunder of its voice, filling the church with a dread that clutched at their throats. "You're blind to what lies beyond." The ground rattled again, and Elias felt the artifact thrumming in resonance with the lost soul's anguish. He concentrated, feeling their cries meld into a singular voice, urging him to go further. They were here for a reason, because this was about more than just facing darkness. This was about freeing them. 10. He shouted, his energy surging forth. The light exploded in a resplendent wave, illuminating every corner of the church, revealing hidden faces of anguish, despair, and hope. The townsfolk gasped, their fears momentarily suspended, their expressions shifting from terror to awe. "Foolish boy!" the figure roared, now a thick shadow trying to coalesce in a desperate attempt to maintain form. "Do you think you can unravel the very fabric of loss? You think you will emerge untouched?" The shadows lashed out, slamming against the artifact's brilliance, but the light stood resolute, pushing back against the darkness like a shield. Elias felt something within him shift. This was more than a battle of light and shadow, it was a fight for understanding, for truth layered in tragedy. "I will not let you drown us in despair," he cried with newfound conviction. Behind him, Clara's voice rang clear, "Together, Elias. We're not alone." Her unwavering support fueled his determination. As he looked into the fearful faces of the townsfolk, he recognized the scattered pieces of despair and indifference. They needed to confront their past, together. 11. The word exploded from his mouth, resonating with an intensity that sent shockwaves through the air. With each number, rebirth seemed possible, one soul at a time. The ghastly faces came into sharper relief. They were not just lost, they were stories, every one woven together by pain and longing. Elias saw memories flash before him, loved ones lost too soon, hopes extinguished, dreams shattered like glass, yet, something primal stirred within him at the creature's desperation. What had once been a figure of overwhelming terror now resonated with echoes of empathy, remnants of a life snuffed out. 12th. He yelled again, eyes locked on the darkened figure. A blinding light poured forth, threatening to engulf everything. Shadows lashed out wildly, but the warmth of the artifact's glow countered each blow. Suddenly, the air shifted. Massive forms began to rise from the floor, figures lost to time, each bearing the weight of their own truths, lost in a past never faced. They drifted just beyond reach, and Elias could hear their whispers, fragile and hopeful. "What is this?" The figure snarled again, but there was uncertainty now. "You cannot save them, you are in over your head." Elias felt sweat bead on his forehead, uncertainty gnawing at his resolve. The darkness writhed, but he could not hesitate now. "You were once lost too, just like them. Join us, and find peace." In a wild rush, the swirling shadows hesitated, the hungry tendrils flickering. Finally, that single flicker of humanity he glimpsed earlier broke through their anger. But in that moment of hesitation, a deafening crack echoed through the church. The floor buckled, fissures spidering outward. The walls trembled ominously, and Elias knew they were running out of time. 13. He shouted, throwing every ounce of his strength into the word, but even as he did, a dark force lunged toward him. Something lurked behind those shadows, something worse than the darkness they faced. As fear dripped into the hearts of the townsfolk, Elias knew the truth would come at a cost. What lay waiting just beyond the veil? Would the truth offer salvation, or annihilation? The shadows recoiled as if in protest, swirling violently around the room. With each pull of the darkness, Elias felt the weight of the impending revelation press harder against his chest. Time slowed. The air in the church crackled with tension, every second felt like an eternity, each breath punctuated by the grappling fear of what might emerge. "Clara!" Elias gasped, forcing the words out through gritted teeth. "We need to work together now more than ever." His voice trembled around the edges, vulnerable but determined. She nodded, urgency flashing in her eyes. "I trust you, Elias. Let us do this." Together, they focused on the artifact, a pulsing beacon shrouded in swirling motes of light. But as Elias readied to call out the next number, he sensed something lurking just beyond the shadows, an entity far more wicked than he had anticipated. It tingled against his skin, electricity mingling with dread. 14. He yelled, summoning the strength of his resolve. The light surged, illuminating the church in an ethereal glow. The walls shuddered violently, and a hair-raising guttural roar erupted from the abyss. "Stop!" It bellowed, the ground trembling beneath them. "Do you really believe in this nonsense? You are nothing." A wave of despair washed over the townsfolk. Faces drained of color, eyes wide with terror. In this moment, they wavered. Would they stand by Elias or let doubt sweep them away? A flash of anger ignited within him. How could the creature twist their fears like puppet strings? "This is our moment. We reclaim the light. The truth cannot remain buried." His shout seemed to echo, reverberating through the broken walls. Howling shadows collided with the vibrant light, threatening to extinguish their hope, yet Elias pushed back with the conviction of every whispered wish in the room. The truth, after all, had its own fierce power. 15. He strained everything into that call, his spirit, his hope, the collective yearning of every lost soul ready to face the truth. The artifact exploded into a supernova of brilliance, rupturing the shadows momentarily, but the creature laughed, a sickening sound that clawed at their resolve. "You play with fire, little boy. The truth burns." It gestured, and from the darkness surged long, clawed limbs reaching out, desperate to reclaim their prey. A piercing screech emanated, and Elias felt the ground shift beneath him. The townsfolk screamed, a cacophony of chaos, terror weaving through the air like a dense fog. "Together!" Clara shouted, grabbing his hand. "We cannot let it win." With all they had, they called upon the light, a swirling storm of energy emanated from the artifact, enveloping them. 16. They cried out in unison, their voices a unified force shaking the very foundation of the church. The shadows writhed, turning with agonizing screams, as although the truth challenged their existence, it also frightened the darkness that attempted to consume them. Elias felt the air grow heavier, the weight of his uncertainty colliding with the force of their combined spirit. The lines between despair and hope blurred in that critical heartbeat, a necessary reckoning, but just then, a tremor followed by a blinding flash of light burst forth. In that moment, an eye of darkness formed in the center of chaos, a glimpse into the unknown, more sinister than the monstrous being. It beckoned, sinister and seductive. Elias gasped, dread sinking deep into his bones. What lay within that void? A truth far worse than anything he could imagine. 17. He shouted, despair boiling alongside determination. Yet as the number left his lips, the darkness roared with fury, rushing toward them, the ground beneath them crumbling away like fragile dreams. Would the truth save them, or would it drag them into the abyss? The answer hung in the air, the promise of a heart-pounding revelation about to unfold. An ear-splitting crash resonated through the church as the shadows surged forward, a churning mass of darkness and malevolence. The very air crackled as if infused with raw energy and fear. Clara's grip tightened around Elias's hand, her eyes alight with both terror and fury. Elias! She cried, her voice rising above the din. We have to hold on. We can't let it take us. Forsaking fear, Elias summoned the will of every soul present. 18. He shouted, each syllable bursting forth with strength derived from desperation. The artifact pulsed in response, its brilliance forming a protective barrier around them. The shadows recoiled, howling against the light like wild animals caught in a hunt, interrupted. Yet, amidst their chaos, the eye of darkness inched closer, its gaze unrelenting, filled with maddening hunger. Foolish children. The creature's voice slithered through the room. You think this pitiful light can save you? I can show you everything, the terrible truths you refuse to see. Elias felt the pulse of the artifact waning, a stark reminder that hope was fragile. He met Clara's gaze, both determined and desperate. Just a little longer, we can push through this. The townsfolk stood wavering in a sea of uncertainty, fear pulling at their hearts. A murmur rippled through the crowd. What if he is wrong? Some whispered. What if this is just a trick? Raw panic threatened to overtake them, creating fissures in the fragile collective courage they had formed. No! Clara shouted, her voice fierce and steady, cutting through the uncertainty. Trust in the light. Believe. Elias took a breath, dousing himself in the warmth of Clara's words. Hasn't this fight always been for something greater? 19. He bellowed, his voice a rallying cry, and the artifact erupted anew, rays of light bursting forth like the sun breaking free of storm clouds. But at that moment, the darkness writhed in anguish, a symphony of screeches that clawed at their minds. The eye of darkness swelled, morphing into a gaping mouth, filled with the weight of countless lost souls. You are not prepared for what comes next. You cannot silence me. The tremors beneath them intensified, and from the darkness, tendrils lashed out, hissing poison-sweet promises. Memories ignited in Elias's mind, flashes of the town's buried secrets, betrayals, greed, even murder. It clawed at him, desperate to unravel his resolve. In that moment, fear slipped its icy fingers around his heart. Could he bear the truth of it all? No. We face it together. Clara's fingers intertwined with his, grounding him against the torrent of darkness. 20. They cried in unison, unleashing a shockwave of light that sent shockwaves through the shadows. The church lit up, revealing terrified faces, some ashamed, others defiant. It was a breath in the storm, a flicker of undeniable courage. As they held the light, the eye writhed, cracking with fury. You think your petty numbers can contain me? I was here before time began, and I will consume all." The artifact amplified their shared clarity, and Elias felt a surge coursing through him. This was their final stand, the moment they would either be reborn or devoured, yet, just as hope seemed tangible, the shadows thickened, forming a solid wall surrounding them, suffocating their light. He could feel the weight of every secret, every darkened thought pressing against him. Darkness clawed at the edges of his vision, and in that fragile second, everything teetered on the abyss. "Elias!" Clara shouted, her eyes filled with urgency. "Listen to me. We have to find the truth within the truth. Something deeper, something we've been missing. What lay beneath their fears? What unseen foundation held their reality together?" Just when he thought he was grasping at the intangible, something profound sparked in Elias's mind. Could the very number they were calling upon hold the key to shattering this evil? But time slipped through their fingers, shadows encroaching. Would the darkness swallow him whole before he could reveal the final secret? Caught between dread and the hope of what was left, Elias faced the entity growing within the abyss. The next number clung at the tip of his tongue, but would he dare speak it? The shadows twisted around him, a suffocating pressure that weighed heavy on Elias's chest. Clara's voice rang clear, a beacon amidst the chaos. "We can do this. We've come this far." That spark ignited something deep within him. Could it be as simple as a number? A number that stood apart from the rest? The thought raced through him, potential and desperation intertwined. He locked eyes with Clara, who brimmed with determination, unyielding against the force pressing upon their reality. 21. He shouted, the number erupting from him, an explosive plea hurled into the abyss. The moment the words left his lips, a brilliant pulse erupted from the artifact, casting out waves of brilliant light that tore through the surrounding darkness like a scythe through wheat. The shadows reeled, howling in anguish as they stumbled back against the onslaught. Faces of lost souls emerged from the darkness, their expressions shifting from anguish to something resembling hope. They hovered near the shimmering barrier of light, mere whispers of what they once were. Elias felt chills as the collective energy surged through the church. His heart pounded, the unyielding question burning in the back of his mind, was this enough? But with every flicker of light around him, the answer became clearer. 22. Clara's voice joined his, uniting their forces, bolstering the shimmering barrier a degree brighter. Together, they began to chant, each pulsating number a lifeline thrown to the lost. 23. 24. The floor beneath them trembled violently, the air thick with electricity as the dark figure screamed. The swirling mass of shadows faltered, losing form as the faces of the lost began to brighten. They were gaining strength. The truth was indeed powerful when shared. Elias watched as the swirling darkness struggled to maintain its grip, desperate and unyielding. A part of him ached for the tortured souls trapped within. The world was not just about light versus dark, it was about acceptance, understanding, and understanding was a journey they all had to take. 25. He bellowed, the power of their collective voices merging into an astounding chorus that echoed through broken stained glass and shattered wood, reverberating farther than he believed possible. With every number, the shadows trembled more fiercely, faces emerging from the depths of despair, reaching towards the healing light they created. Elias felt his heart expand with hope as he turned and met the eyes of his fellow townsfolk. Their fear transformed into resilience. Their doubt morphed into courage. And then, an earth-shattering roar erupted as the shadows convulsed, bending to the realized power surrounding them. "You think this is the end?" The creature screeched, its form flickering like an old film. The eye of darkness appeared once more, a gaping maw ready to consume whatever remained of their spirit. "You cannot extinguish the abyss." 26. We face this together. Clara's unwavering support ignited a fire in him, causing him to push harder against the encroaching darkness. They chanted together, their voices merging into a fierce declaration, words firing into the void as though they were bullets. 27. 28. Finally, Elias felt it. The charged air began to shift. Wavelengths crackled, transforming frustration into understanding, anger into empathy. With each number, they uncovered the multi-layered truth, the pain of the past, sorrow mingled with catharsis. The lost were not mere shadows to fear, they were stories longing to be told. 29. The artifact erupted, its pulse intertwining with the last strands of darkness. The church vibrated, walls trembling with urgency, the foundations groaning as if to echo their cries. At last, the shadows faltered, collapsing inward before bursting apart, consumed by the brilliance generated from the artifact. The dark figure shrieked, slipping away, its echoes fading beneath the cascading light until nothing remained but silence. In a breath, the church was still, the air shimmered, and Elias slowly opened his eyes, disbelief flooding his senses. Clara's hand still clasped in his, they stood together, surrounded by an ethereal glow. Lost souls seemed to float freely, faces transformed into gentle smiles, glancing toward the pair with palpable gratitude. A weight lifted from the town, the monstrous presence was gone. The shadows had retreated, revealing a glinting path back to hope and recovery. As the faint specters began to dissipate, filling Maplewood with warmth and light, Clara turned to Elias, her smile radiant with triumph. "We did it. We faced them together." Elias nodded, his heart still racing but now with a different kind of fervor, the fervor of hope, a renewed sense of unity. The darkness was powerful, but in light of shared truth, they had unearthed bonds stronger than fear. The townsfolk emerged from their collective fear, feeling the lingering warmth envelop them, connecting in shared triumph. In the end, they had faced their past, their fears, and discovered who they could be when united. As laughter and murmurings of relief began to fill the church once more, Elias felt the artifact grow warm in his hand. He gazed at it, knowing it would need to be safeguarded, understood. They had unlocked a truth that could save lives, but it must be kept close, a reminder of the past and a guide for the future. They turned together, the townsfolk gathering around them like a family reborn, ready to redefine Maplewood. And those scars would remain, they now held a promise all together, they would write a new narrative. But before goodbye could fully set in, a soft whisper slipped through the air, a voice clear and haunting. And now, for the next chapter. In unison, they turned their attention, a wave of anticipation rising. The shadows might have withdrawn, but the journey was far from over. This is our moment to step into the light. You need to subscribe now or risk being left in the dark for the next exclusive story. Smash that like button now to show your support. This incredible journey deserves to be known. Share your thoughts in the comments about what this all could mean. We want to hear your theories. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. Your support means everything to us.